so much appreciate you, and so much appreciate you've become like a mentor to me and Leslie. And I know in the summer, as a nation, and actually as the world, we opened up a conversation which we'd been having a little bit already. You as a black guy and me as a white guy, and in Croydon, where there's such a mix of so many nations and flavors and cultures. And you were so kind because you called me and said, how's it going? And sort of just gave me a bit of a steer on certain things, which I so much appreciated. Yeah. What's your take now, sort of 6-7 months after the news cycle has sort of slightly moved on? What's your take on it, or what do you think we should be paying attention to with regard to that conversation?
It's a interesting one because is it significant? Yes. Is it something important? Yes. Are there social issues that are troubling us? Yes. Right. But is it a surprise? No, because we're in a sinful world. Right. I'll give you a little bit of background and to help you. I went to probably the worst school in the country at the time that I was
in America.
Yeah, when I was in the States. As you know, I'm from California. At the worst time that it was, I went to Compton High School in 1974 for 1 year. Right, I went to Compton schools, even though I didn't live in Compton. Right, we were bused there. That's a story in itself. And it was right as the gangs were lifting, but the police didn't care at the time. Right, so it was actually the worst period because it was all inside. Right, it was almost like you stepped into this place, and it was like going into no man's land. Right, and there was no law in there. So I saw things that people shouldn't see when you're a kid. I had a gun pointed in my face one time. I thought someone was going to shoot me. You know, we would get robbed, but we didn't know we were getting robbed because people just took your money. It wasn't robbery was when you broke in someone's house, not when they took your money. That kind of thing, right? And I used to joke, right, because at the time it was at the end of the civil rights movement, right? So Martin Luther King died in 1968. I graduated from high school in 1976, right? So 1974, I'm 15 years old at Compton High School, right? And they used to talk about the man. The man's going to get you. That meant the white man. The man's going to get you. Be careful. The man's going to do this, and the man. And I used to say this. I used to say, you know what? I'm going to deal with the man in a minute. But right now, these black people are trying to kill me, right? Because there were no white people. There were no Latinos, right? It was all black, right? And so when people were robbing me, it wasn't a man. It was my brother. It was a neighbor, and so forth. There was a guy named Tookie Williams, right? And you would have heard from him. He went to Centennial High School. Centennial was the other school, was the second worst school, right? And he was the founder of the Crips, right? He was the guy that started it all. And he later ended up in prison and on death row for killing someone, right? And people, because he had written this book and about how, you know, gangs should be different and everything, everyone was like, you know, he should get off and everything like that. Well, everybody in Compton said no, the man should die, right? Because he was evil, because he was wicked, because it was awful. The things he did were terrible. The things you hear about are only a bit. The things he did, the people in the neighborhood was fearful because of him, right? And so that kind of stuff happens everywhere. If everybody were one color, then it would be whose hair was long and whose hair was short and things like that. Now, that doesn't mean that these issues aren't important, right? Just because there's going to be sin in the world, it doesn't mean that, so one particular stuff, we're just going to ignore that one, right? But there is a response that the body should have, right? What happened is people evaluate you, and if you show them respect, if you value them, then they know it. They know it in the end. In fact, that's why, to be honest with you, I know this is about you, but that's one of the reasons why I think you're doing so well, right? Because I think you do the same thing. I think you're not trying to be someone else, but you show respect to people. You see them for who they are. You know, everyone says, I don't see color. Of course you do. You know, you do. We're different. People are different. But different is good. It's like curry.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see curry. Yes, you do. It's burning my mouth, right? But it's good. And okay, I don't like it so hot, but give it to the mild, and I'm good.
Yeah.
So I think in the end, now we're talking about this issue. This is an issue that is not only has it affected America, but it's almost like a bad tooth. You know what I mean? That you kind of get used to it and you kind of go along to it, but then one day somebody pokes it and you go, ow, and you realize, oh, it's worse than I thought it was, right?
Wow. Yeah.
It's worse than I thought it was. And we could take some time on this, right? Because the issue of the church, and being the black church and the white church, those are issues that have suddenly come up.
Yeah.
And they're hard issues because you have to love each other and you have to be able to respect each other enough to talk about it.
Yeah.
You got to be able to say, well, why do you do it? Like I'm gonna throw something at you. Here you go.
Sure.
Right? You go to a black church, right? And some of the things that happen in black churches we don't like, right? Like they take so long. You know, you get up there and you haven't done anything, and you talk for and they're going on for hours and stuff like that, right? Now, you could say, well, our black church doesn't do it, but generally speaking, that's what happens.
Right.
Right? You know, so you kind of go, you can't say that because if you say that, they're going to call you prejudiced. So you can't say, I can say it, but you can't say it. Do you get what I mean?
Right.
So you need me to be able to say it for you. Man, you guys are taking too long, right? But then you go to a white church, right? And they're not all this way, but the music is horrible, or they, or it's like, or whatever, you know what I mean? And you go, that's not it. But there are bigger issues. There are issues of, and these are things that people will say, and the issues of we're fine until it comes to leadership, or until it comes to marriage, right? In other words, the white guy will say, yeah, great, we're with you. You come and join us and be in the choir side. But when I come up and I'm equal to you, that's a different story, And you go, no, that won't happen. Well, yes, it does. Okay, how? And then we can show you this, that. So those are things that people have to talk about and have to think about.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, I don't want to turn over to you because you're going to make everything crazy. You get what I mean? And until you have those kind of conversations, things won't change. One more thing I will say, right? In some ways, they can't change because the church is the only institution where people go to because they choose to. Yeah. Right? So if I'm a white guy, right, and I like rock music and everything, and I walk into a church full of black people and they're doing soul music, I do not feel comfortable. I just don't, right? I want to go where my friends are. Now, if I'm a black guy, right, and I do the same thing and I walk into them, then I don't feel comfortable. Our people have adjusted better because we've had to. So it's easier for a black person to go into a white environment than it is for a white person to go into a black environment because we've had to. We're used to it. We do it at work. We do it everywhere, But you'll find that as soon as you get a bunch of brothers together, the conversation will change, that kind of thing. So those are the kind of things that, in a way, they're supposed to be that way. Yeah. But what should happen, really, is we get together. What I've just told you is gospel.
Yeah, it is.
It isn't, some amazing thing, is it? When you think about it, it isn't like, wow, great revelation. It's what Jesus said the whole time, isn't it? Yeah. That they might be one, and by this, we'll all know that you're my disciples. So really, that's what it should be.
Oh, I love that, Freddie. Yeah.